Honourable Member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. You know, Madam Deputy Speaker, budget is an annual event that we do in this honourable chamber. And it is customary for honourable members to first speak to those people who gave them an opportunity to come here to represent them. And when I speak in this honourable house, I speak representing the interests of those 8,000 odd people in Christchurch West. Those people, those good people of Christchurch West that have sent me to this honourable house first in 2003 and then sent me here on several more occasions. And I want to thank them for giving me this opportunity, because it is through their confidence in me that gives me a chance to make this contribution to this honourable house. And you know, Madam Speaker, let me also thank the team that worked with me, especially the Director General, and I want to call her name, Ms. Gabrielle Springer, and the Special Advisor, Mr. Daniel Best. Because although we have a large portfolio, we are a small, very close-knit team, and we've been able to accomplish a lot in a short space of time. But you know, Madam Speaker, when I heard the honourable member start, it reminded me of 3 particular cases in the constituency of Christchurch West. First, it reminded me of an elderly gentleman in his mid to late 90s who I knew from the time I was a boy. And he worked hard, toiled hard, but his house had fallen into disrepair. And this government, through the Urban Development Commission, was able to do repairs for his house. A tangible difference that this government made in his life. It also reminded me of a lady who was the victim of arson. And she had suffered greatly, lost all of her possessions to arson. It was never proven who had done it, but again, this government, through the National Housing Corporation, came to that lady's aid and was able to provide her with a unit so she could once again have a place to call home. Another tangible, workable solution for a hard-working Barbadian. But you know, Madam Speaker, what really touched my heart, Madam Deputy Speaker, is when the honourable member came and spoke about a disabled person. He started off his speech about a disabled person. And it touched my heart, Madam Speaker, because I had a disabled person in the constituency of Christchurch West, a lady who was bound to a wheelchair, had a disability from very young. And she was in a National Housing Corporation unit in Bonnets. And for those of you who don't know, most of those units are upstairs and downstairs. And many days she couldn't get upstairs. In fact, it was featured in the newspaper. And when we saw that, and then on top of that, she actually had twin girls, which made it even more difficult for her to walk. And you know, when we saw that, Madam Deputy Speaker, we said no, it couldn't continue. Luckily, I was aware that the National Housing Corporation had a disabled unit over in Valerie. And we were able to get her repositioned to that unit. And why I'm so emotional, Madam Speaker, is because one day I opened the paper and I saw that they had found her in the unit, deceased, that she had committed suicide. And many days I questioned myself. Madam Deputy Speaker. Did I do the right thing? Did I do the right thing? Is it that if she was at home with her family, that the problems of mental health and the issues that we have in mental health in this country may not have so captured her that would have happened? And so when the Honourable Member spoke about disability and mental health previously, it really touched me. And it reminded me of why I do this job. I do this job for the people of Barbados. I do this job for the constituents of Christchurch West and for all of Barbados. I do this job because I intend to try to make life better for my fellow Barbadians. And that is why not only I do this job, but that's why all of us on this side do this job. None of us on this side power hungry, that decide that we have to jump from the back bench to lead the opposition to get power. That's not where we are. We do this job because the average Barbadian must benefit from the labors that we do, benefit from the programs, benefit from the work that we do individually and collectively. And that's why we do this job. You know, Madam Deputy Speaker, it has been a long time since there's been a member for the Democratic Labour Party in this honourable chamber. Indeed, it has been 11 years since the Democratic Labour Party has even won a seat in this country. 11 years, because they did not win a seat since 2013. And 6 years since they've had a member in this honourable chamber. I thought that after that number of years, that the honourable member would have come with something good and done better. You know, the good book says that you must always bring your best. The honourable member fell woefully short of his best in this presentation today. He has left much to be desired. Much to be desired in that presentation. I'm going to start basically with something the honourable member has said, and he said it many times. He always says that he has a right to be wrong. He has a right to be wrong. He says it all the time. Well, he has clearly exercised that right today, time and time again. And I want to start with a program that I conceptualized. And if the honourable member for St. George South, please forgive me, I have to speak a little bit about hope. Hope is home owners providing energy. It's an acronym, but it also gives hope for home ownership for the people of this country. And we conceptualize hope for several reasons. The first thing, and let me make it absolutely and pellucidly clear, Hope is a wholly owned company for the government of Barbados, and that is it. One shareholder, the government of Barbados, wholly owned. by the government of Barbados. Let me make that absolutely clear. In addition, I was the minister when we met with contractors, the same like 26 contractors that he talked about, to give them opportunities to build houses in this country. They even formed a cooperative, and they were given opportunities to build. National Housing Corporation was busy working with Hurricane Elsa, working with all the other programs. And we gave an opportunity, in addition to all the other work we were doing with National Housing, to also give an opportunity to small contractors to come on board, work with government, and build houses. And houses don't just build like that. You got to first put in the infrastructure. You got to put in the roads, put in the water, get the houses built. Or just go down Lancaster and see the houses. Hundreds of houses down there already. And that is what Hope was able to do. And I know that on a short space of time, people will be getting keys to go into those houses. It was a good initiative. And on top of that, we capped the price of the land. What if the honourable member suggests that $250 for the land, when he said the land value $18, but that benefit goes to the homeowner? That benefit doesn't go to government. It's a good thing. It's only our member that could take a good thing and change it around, make it a bad thing. That is a good thing. To get people an opportunity to get houses that are good quality houses, well-designed houses, well-constructed houses, and get them for less than what they would have to pay on the open market. Because we kept the price of land down, we kept the price of housing, of building houses down by doing bulk purchasing. And that's how we were able to do it. And it is a good project. And on top of it, which you haven't even talked about the bounty that will come when you have the photovoltaic systems on top of the house, which means that the mortgage payment will be even less and more affordable for the average person. All the nurses, the teachers, the policemen, and the other people that work in government will get an opportunity to get houses. Madam Speaker, I have an important question to ask. I have to ask a personal question. I have to ask a pertinent question. I have to ask a pressing question to all those people that can hear my voice. That question is, has this administration not done a good job? Irrespective of what color shirt you wear, irrespective of what party you support, if you are true to yourself, you would have to answer, yes, this administration has done a fantastic job. You would have to answer yes. But when you look back at it, I was in this honourable chamber for 5 of the 10 years of the last decade, when the last administration could not get past 1% growth in this country. Could not get past 1%. And if you were to take the honourable member at his word, because you don't understand real growth from nominal growth, if we add in now the inflation, they were essentially in recession then, if you take his argument. And in contrast, this administration has been able to achieve 4.5% growth and looking to get even higher over the next few years. And how have we done it? We have done it by making Barbados attractive, affordable, and you know the most important thing? Building confidence. Confidence. That's the most important thing. Building confidence in the people that invest. Building confidence in Barbadians. And building confidence in this society. You know the reason, Madam Speaker, why that previous administration could not go to the open market and get loans? because there was no confidence in the administration of the Democratic Labour Party. No confidence. That's why they had to raid the NIS and they had to raid the central bank, because there was no confidence in them to access money. That's why they had to borrow money to pay salaries. This administration borrows to build. Building the roads in the Scotland district. Building Sam Lord's Castle, and they're going to come to that. Building the geriatric hospital. Improving the water authority. We're going to be building a new sewage plant. I'm going to talk about that. This administration is about building tangible things that we are borrowing to build and make this country better. Nobody can point to anything that the last administration borrowed to build, because they didn't borrow to build. They borrowed to pay salaries. And anybody knows if you borrow to pay, what he himself said, and obviously it must be a slip of the tongue, but when he read the Financial Times, he said clearly that Barbados was bankrupt, but it was bankrupt because of the Democratic Labour Party, his same party. He said that. He said that White Oak came in to resettle the debt because of a bankrupt Barbados. But it was bankrupt because of his party. It wasn't bankrupt because of this administration. It was bankrupt because of that administration. And what we have come in to do is to fix what they caused. And we have been successful at fixing it. I go further, Madam Speaker. Barbados is not only a buzz, but it's humming with activity. We have projects after projects, a lot of private sector projects, some public sector projects, and I call it the H's. Hotels, houses, hospitals, all across this country. My job, Madam Speaker, is to track these, to facilitate them as best I can, and to move them from concept to completion. And we have many projects, warehouse projects, not to be outdone. In addition to the hotels, from Pendry in the north to Royalton at Holetown to the Pierhead, about to start here, to Indigo in my constituency, to Maple Manor also in my constituency, to Margaritaville also in my constituency. There are many, many hotel projects. But that isn't all. We got hospital projects too. We have a project going up in Warrens for a hospital. Hundreds of millions of dollars. We have another one that's going through the planning process in Kent. Another hundreds of millions of dollars. An application just came in for one in Flint Hall. Not to mention the expansion at Bayview that we've seen that's gone up very well. Hospital projects. Homing projects. Homes, houses. The one that I'm most excited about is actually in the constituency of the member for St. Andrew, which is there by on the other side of Orange Hill by the Chauffette, Lancaster, where they're supposed to be doing 400 houses and a town centre to that. 700 houses up in Ridge. I think 400 or 500 already. Another 200 on the other side of Ridge. You know, it's at the point, I'm speaking that we met the Honourable Member for St. Peter and myself, convened a meeting with the contractors and asked them about their ability to attract labor. And every single one of them said there are so many projects going on that they're finding it difficult to attract labor in this country, both skilled and unskilled. And they said all the time, we need to find more labor. And that's why this administration did the construction gateway, to train our people in skills like masonry and carpentry and well digging and plumbing and tiling and drywall, and all those things. But they need more. Because when you add up all of the projects between the warehouses, I added the warehouses, 13 warehouses across this country, the hotels, the housing, the hospitals, the PV installation, so many of those. When you add up all those construction projects, Madam Deputy Speaker, the greatest need we're going to have is labor. You know, I met with one of the public officers I have great respect for. And he's been working with us as well to prepare for the education transformation, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But he looked at me one day and he said, you know, Minister, if you want to leave from home and go to Bridgetown, and you wait for all the traffic lights to be green, you will never get to Bridgetown. Sometimes you have to leave from home when a few traffic lights are red. And I took that point. In politics, we say it a different way. We say perfection is the greatest impediment to progress. And we recognize that. So projects will have difficulty. Projects will have problems. Projects will have delays. But you know what? No matter what it is, you work to overcome them. The Honourable, the former Prime Minister of this country used to say, you face it and you fix it. And that's what we do. We do that day in and day out, project after project after project. And you know, Madam Deputy Speaker, I heard a lot of noises about Sam Lord's Castle. I heard a lot of noises that a former Minister of Tourism was saying that the BLP was taking credit for their programs. I found that really, really interesting, that the BLP was taking credit for projects under his watch. And he said that they had done a showroom or something like that. So I asked for the facts, and I asked that they share with me information and some pictures about how the Sam Lord's Castle site looked in 2018 when the Democratic Labour Party left office. That is what they showed me. A clear-away land with a big hole in it. A clear-away land with a big hole in it. That is what the Democratic Labour Party left in 2018 and said that we have built on their projects. This is what Sam Lord's Castle looks like today. $420-room hotel, operating and attracting guests. Operating and attracting guests. Look at that. A big hole. And cleared off land in 2018. And a 420-room hotel. But let me tell you, because we did not build anything on them. We looked at what they had, and we said, no, we need to redesign this. We took the site, and we changed around the back office, changed around some of the rooms, redesigned the whole thing. Redesigned the whole thing. And that redesign took 17 acres and made 17 acres available for, you know what? Another hotel. So in addition to all that we did, we redesigned the site, to make more acreage available for another hotel next door to Sam Lord's. And let me tell you, Madam Deputy Speaker, the hotel hosted its first guests in October of 2023 with an opening of 128 rooms and entertained 2 major conferences in 2024. This was possible as the Wyndham Grand Hotel features state-of-the-art events facility, a conference facility that can accommodate 1,000 persons theater style, and 700 persons banquet style. This is why the Honourable Prime Minister could go through the list of all of those conferences that are prepared to come to Barbados. Because for too long we have not had a place that could have a large conference. But today we do, because of the foresight and the vision of this side of this Parliament. Mr. Speaker, 422 rooms, the gym and the spa are now all completed, and the hotel can accommodate 1,000 guests at full occupancy. At full occupancy, it could employ 1,000 people. It currently has a staff of 477. 477 Bajans. That if this administration had not taken the time to build that facility, would not be working today. And when we get up to full occupancy, it could get to 1,000. This is what this administration has done. It is estimated that that facility could bring $50 million into this economy annually once we ramp up to full occupancy. And I spoke to the general manager, he's at 80% occupancy today. And we even talk about all the ancillary services, all the farmers that could sell their produce and are selling their produce. We ain't talk about the taxis, the tour operators, all the people that will have an opportunity because this come. And let me tell you, Madam Deputy Speaker, it is not easy to build what we did. You know, that administration tried to build a place at Valerie, had overrun after overrun after overrun, couldn't finish for a long time, and real problems. And we built a whole hotel 3, 4, 5 times must be the size of that, employing hundreds of people. And you know we did it? We did it working with people in a foreign language. In a foreign language, though. It reminded me, you know, sometimes a former member for St. Michael's South used to say, you know, he went to university in a foreign language. Not easy. Not an easy thing to do. But that is what we were able to do, and we are justly proud of the accomplishment of this administration.
Honourable Member, you have 3 minutes.
No, Madam Speaker, no, I only know start. Why only know start? I wanted to get into all of the things that the planning department is doing. I wanted to get into all the things that the geriatric hospital is doing. Madam, carry on. Anyway. I get thrown off there. I thought I know how to change the talk. Anyway, Madam Speaker. Let me talk about the planning department. The planning department, of which, and I have responsibility for the planning department, they have been under tremendous pressure, but they have done tremendous work. At the same time that they did a physical development plan that had not been laid in this country for a long, long time, they did a physical development plan, they did change management. We're currently at a new location we're about to move to. We have increased numbers of people that we are having to service because of the numbers of decisions, 9,176 decisions, 2,583 building starts, 1,260 certificates of compliance. The planning department has been working flat out. And I wanted to take this opportunity from this honourable chamber to thank them for the tremendous work that they do on a daily basis. You know, Madam Speaker, some people feel it's only about permissions, but it's so much more that the planning department does. I wanted to talk about the Rural Development Commission and the tremendous work that they have done, not only with the Hurricane Elsa program, but also with pit eradication, house repairs. They would have done over 185 house repairs over the 5-year period. They have done repairs to over 200 houses, 240 new houses, 172 wells, 29 wells and tanks. I wanted to talk about the Urban Development Commission and tremendous work that they're doing as well. 2018 to 2019, over 124 projects. 2019 to 2020, 152 projects. 2020 to 2021, 138 projects, and those include things like houses, house repairs, wells, septic tanks, roof retrofitting, pit eradication projects. 2021 to 2022, 138 projects. 2022 to 2023, another 138 projects. 199 projects, including a lot of work with Hurricane Elsa. Not to mention the fantastic work that they did at the Fairchild Street Market, building out kiosks, again for the average person, with a total of engaging 28 contractors, building 10 blocks of 25 vegetable stalls and 24 general purpose stalls in phase 2. In phase 1, they had 11 blocks of 44 individual food stalls, 3 craft stalls and bathroom blocks. This is what the work of this government is about. This is why the people voted for us in 2018 and voted for us again in 2022. And they're going to vote for us again whenever the Prime Minister calls that day. Because the people of this country recognize that this administration is doing a good job. This administration came to office when there was sewage on the streets. That's what we came to office and found. And you know what? We faced the problem and we solved it. We first put a temporary outfall. The Honourable Member for Christchurch East was instrumental in that. But not only are we going to fix the sewage problem at the South Coast, we're going to upgrade the Bridgetown sewage plant as well. The Prime Minister also talked about what we were going to do in Bailey's Alley and Bellevue Gap and the Bell, to be able to upgrade the facilities for those people. But we don't do all of that. In addition, we do collaborative work. We work with the Ministry of Energy. And soon you're going to hear information about studies to get the old mobile site cleaned up. We work, and I work very closely with the Ministry of Energy with photovoltaics as well. And the minister from the other place works hard, day in and day out, to get us to where we should be. But you know what is the greatest hallmark of this administration, Madam Speaker, Deputy Speaker? The greatest hallmark is that we work together. We don't send out letters saying, one minister saying, don't meet with the other ministry. We never ever do that like the other administration has done in the past. We work with the Ministry of Housing. We work with the Ministry of the Environment. Totally collaborative to be able to do the best for the people of this country.
Honourable Member, you're doing well. Can you kindly
Madam
please?
Speaker, I want to leave you with one last thing.
Go ahead, sir.
And it is this. The infrastructure that now exists and the infrastructure that has been built over the years is built on a climate that no longer exists. In this world, we face climate change and global warming. And we must build resiliently. We must build for the future. We must build to understand that we are not only building for ourselves, We're building for our children and their children and their children. And that is what this Barbados Labour Party is about. Taking care of our people now with an eye to taking care of generations for the future. And with those few words, I'm obliged.
Honourable Member for St. George North.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I rise this evening, this late hour of the evening, in support of the budgetary proposals as methodically laid out by the Honourable Prime Minister last evening. In a world, I believe, saturated by complexity and uncertainty, and certainly in a country where fearmongering abounds, and where political intrigue seems to be the art of the day to distract ordinary citizens from the progress being made. I thank the Honourable Prime Minister for being able to project and present a set of proposals that demonstrate, to my mind, a blend of honesty, ingenuity, and strategic foresight. In my opinion, the presentation yesterday was a solid one. Madam Deputy Speaker, I am very conscious that my response to the budgetary proposals will be critiqued by some intentionally and absurdly to align with the misinformation and fear-mongering that has become the norm and tactic of those whose objective it is simply to distract. And we experienced much of that for the first 5 hours of the debate this evening. I would claim it the theater of the absurd is what we witnessed. We kept hearing mention being made about the voice of Jacob and the hand of Esau. And in listening, Madam Deputy Speaker, all I could sense was the hand of a former trade unionist and the voice of a former Prime Minister, recognized even though it was not heard often. Madam Deputy Speaker, the fact that the government has presented a budget with no new taxes must stand as testament to the administration's confidence in and commitment to the economic stability and well-being of this country, and that we must continue to pursue. Madam Deputy Speaker, the Prime Minister engaged in what can only be described as an earnest dialogue concerning our nation's present state and its future trajectory, charting a course that is not only visionary, but actionable, and I dare say attainable. I will now make my contribution to this debate against a backdrop of a clear theme of prosperity, resilience, and social justice, looking at our obstacles and the way forward. But as I do so, I wish none to make the mistake that support for the measures as outlined is equal any acceptance on my part that there's not much more that can be done. Because certainly we must push harder for working people and their families in this country. Let me talk straight. As the General Secretary of the largest trade union in Barbados, my stance isn't about echoing the demands of other unions blindly. It is about acknowledging hard truths and the undeniable progress that we have made as a country. Fact, for the second consecutive year, the Honourable Member of St. Michael Northeast has delivered a budget of no taxes, amidst global upheaval. Let me start here, as many have been calling on the government, even as recently as last evening, to reduce taxes to alleviate the cost of living burden in this country. This should come as no surprise to us, for I too look forward to the day where we can hear a presentation in this honorable chamber where there will be the removal of many taxes, if not all the taxes. But perhaps, Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Minister of Finance in her wrap-up might wish to spend more time explaining how the progressive tax reforms that were called for by Labour and the private sector as well in our initial meetings back in 2018 are being implemented systematically and methodically. One way of tackling tax inequality is to decrease tax rates on lower incomes and impose increased tax rates on higher incomes. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, tax is known to affect many aspects of social welfare and other public spending, and it is used to fund fundamental services such as health, education, childcare, housing, and so on. From the measures announced, it should be easily recognized that without imposing austerity measures that bring with them more taxes, and we certainly have had the experience in this country, this government is trying to redistribute revenues to tackle inequalities and promote fairness. The commentary from those who, like me during 2018, had been calling for progressive taxation reforms are therefore confusing to my mind, since they would seem to suggest that government must lower revenues by lowering taxes and borrowing, while at the same time increasing public spending, particularly on social welfare that every effective trade unionist across the world demands. Madam Deputy Speaker, I welcome the measures to increase public spending, not only on social welfare, but in other areas. The recent proposal aimed at securing and broadening the rights of persons living with disabilities marks a significant milestone in our nation's journey towards inclusivity and equity. By introducing special needs grants for minors and adults to the tune of 50% and 100% respectively of non-contributory old age pension respectively, this government is not just legislating. It is testament to this government's deep-seated belief that the strength of our society is measured not by the wealth of a few, but the care afforded to our most vulnerable members in this society. Madam Speaker, in recognizing the systemic exclusion faced by persons living with disabilities, this measure is not a tax cut, but it is public spending that is responding, giving tangible support to many vulnerable persons who need it, while making a profound investment in our nation's future. Madam Speaker, with this proposal, I think of the family that I recently learned of, a family with 3 children, all having autism, who were dislocated from their house very recently, all because in managing the support for them, the family could not meet its other financial obligations. This measure, which will cost taxpayers $4 million per year, will assist families like these. The measure includes a 75% tax credit for the provision of education and life skills facilities for persons with special needs. That is a welcome. A 50% tax cut for the provision of educational centers for gifted persons. That is a welcome. The 50% tax credit to boost investment in sports venues is a welcome. Making provision for small business people to get NIS benefits. That's an overarching strategy that seeks to do what unions are demanding, translating the informal sector into the formal sector. The extension of the 7.5% decrease in VAT on the first 250 kilowatt hours of electricity is a welcome. The waiver of import duty and VAT on the purchase and installation of generators and transfer switches for residential properties. The waiver of VAT on the sale and installation of water tanks and electrical pumps. There were no tax cuts, but certainly savings brought to households in areas that bring benefit to them and this country as a whole. Mr. Speaker, investment in household and community resilience is reflective, Madam Speaker, of a policy to discourage activities harmful to the environment. Internationally, in the trade union movement, this is important to us as we speak about climate resilience, because we have a saying that there are no jobs on a dead climate, on a dead planet. The 50% tax credit for works associated with beach rehabilitation. All these measures are promoting climate resilience and a just transition for our workers. When I see provision for increased spending on these things, I see attempts at improving the well-being for all citizens, all workers and their families, not some, but all Bajans. So, Madam Speaker, I allow myself oftentimes, including in this House, to be somewhat subdued. In fact, I would say that it is my nature to be subdued. I take a lot of criticism, especially since I am not given to engaging or providing fodder, as I would see it, for persons who seem to get turned on by attacking the character of other people, even when it is baseless, even when they have no real evidence or substance support it. I really don't have time for that. But Madam Speaker, my mind goes back to the first Friday in November during 2020, when a number of speakers who all had some kind of background in trade unionism were the key speakers at a joint meeting in St. George North. A joint meeting that was co-sponsored by 3 political parties contesting the St. George North by-election. Some will call it a rare show of solidarity, and I don't blame them for that, because I know about that. I know about claims of lambs resting with lions, and perhaps the Honourable member for St. Peter can clarify the biblical basis of that at some point. For Mr. Speaker, back in 2017, some of us, that is, some trade unionists, not all, marched with the private sector against austerity measures that were being imposed, the most recent at that time being the NSRL. We also marched against the lack of consultation at the level of the social partnership. So I understand situations that bring together strange bedfellows around issues in common. But back to that meeting, I believe it was the 6th of November 2020. That meeting where there was a desperate attempt by 3 political parties to undermine my candidacy for the Barbados Labour Party. They couldn't tackle it one by one on their own. So they came together, 3 of them, supported by trade unionists, to undermine my stewardship. The fact that I am here speaking today, on the second occasion being elected in St. George North, tells you that collectively, they couldn't beat me either. But it also tells a story that sometimes empty vessels will make the most noise, but very often they're appealing to a very small minority who can be influenced by them, and some of whom want to accept facts, even if it was the first name. The fact that I'm here, Mr. Speaker, in the House of Assembly means that my stewardship as a trade unionist in this party stands for itself, for it led to a minimum wage. Sir, madam, I know that every honourable member in this chamber recognized when the minimum wage was introduced back in 2021 that $8.50 per hour could not stand on its own as a minimum wage that represented a living wage, but we all recognize it to be a start. I hasten to add that it was the Barbados Workers Union under my leadership that did not just advocate for the introduction of the minimum wage, but that was the driving force behind it. And just a few weeks ago, last month, in this honourable chamber where we were debating the Labour Concessions Act, again the call was made for a revisit of the minimum wage, noting that the minimum wage board had not met to review the wage in 3 years. So I welcome the proposal, I welcome the measure to have a revisit to this minimum wage. And Madam Speaker, through you, I must urge the honorable member for St. Peter. I urge him to actively ensure that bureaucracies or absences of members of the minimum wage board would not see us dragging into inertia where the commitment to improve on the minimum wage is further delayed. There must be no excuse for the board's inability to meet. We cannot and will not stand idly by while our workers are forced to make do with wages that don't keep pace with the cost of living. Failure to act is not an option. It is actually non-negotiable. So that when a new rate comes, as I have every confidence that a new rate will come, alongside the announcement of the continued decrease on the VAT on electricity and negotiations that I imagine will continue for lowered prices at the supermarket level, I believe that these measures will not resolve the problem of cost of living, but will certainly go some distance into addressing an issue that is often very complex, as cost of living in countries like ours especially is often influenced by a number of external factors beyond our control. Madam Speaker, I am here in this lower house where my stewardship has directly impacted the extent to which public servants got appointments. Most recently at the Caribbean Aircraft Handling, a government-owned company. I'm here, Mr. Speaker, where my influence has been to encourage a government who has boldly accepted the challenge of making good on the Labor Contracts Act in terms of applying it to the construction sector, and going further to have passed into law the Labor Concessions Act, as I said only last month. Madam Speaker, I know you and others will recall my advocacy for the recalibration of concessions within the hotel sector. And yesterday, I was very pleased that this government's very decisive posture to regularize and reassess concessions across the board was made more evident. That this government was willing to act with precision for the greater good of our economy and our society. This measure is about aligning our economic policies with the realities of today and the aspirations of tomorrow. It is about ensuring that if companies are saying that they're earning foreign exchange, that they're earning foreign exchange and that foreign exchange is reaching where it should. The approach I find to be both sensible and responsible, but above all, it encourages organizations, including unions if they get concessions, to bring current their application for concessions and their obligations to do right once they have been granted these concessions. So the measures, Madam Deputy Speaker, are measures that we see are aligning with a forward-thinking government. I turn now, Madam Speaker, to my leadership in another way, not only in terms of the application of the Labor Concessions Act, not only in terms of the application of the Labor Contracts Act, but I turn attention now, Madam Speaker, to the fact that I can sleep well at night when the question often comes, how do you manage being a member of Parliament and also being a workers' representative? And as I sat and listened to the measures being rolled out yesterday, I could not help but think, but it is happening right now, and it is happening under this government's watch. Look at some further actions. The massive increase in the QA staffing by nearly 250 dedicated professionals. the modernizing of the police service, ensuring that those who protect us well feel supported and feel encouraged to continue the good work that they're doing to protect us. In education, we're not just talking the talk, but we are walking the walk through the establishment, Minister of Education, of a teaching service commissioned to oversee professional development of teachers and their welfare. That signifies, in my mind, deep respect for the pivotal role that they play in shaping the future of this country. All of these things are interconnected. These measures, these actions, to my mind, are the very embodiment of a government that prioritizes its people and sees the workforce not as a liability, but as the very engine of growth for this nation. The fact that workers of Barbados, and more particularly the people of St. George North, were not beguiled by a sect who refused to speak up, where the evidence clearly shown that they should have, encourages me in moments when I would otherwise feel frustrated. You see, there were a set of people who aligned themselves to trade unions, but who did not speak up when taxes were squeezing the last breath out of us. They did not speak up when the plug was pulled on subsidization of university tuitions. In fact, one commentator can be recalled as saying that citizens were unreasonable in their expectations because the government could not simply continue to carry the subsidization of tuition fees, a trade unionist, farmer. And that the leader of the opposition could stand here this evening and say, don't touch education. I found it, you call it shameful? Yeah. If it wasn't so shameful, it would be laughable. A country experienced 23 downgrades, not a peep from some who hold office in that other place. When working people and their families were thrown under the proverbial bus as the first line of defense with new tax after new tax after new tax, their only commentary was to encourage the private sector to recognize the role it must play in stimulating growth. But a no-tax budget comes for the second consecutive year in circumstances where we have had 11 quarters of growth, and the call comes for cutting taxes.
Honourable Member, you have 5 minutes, please.
As a trade unionist, I watched as a junior to that set, seeing the breakdown happening. And I watched them often taking one step forward and two steps backwards in terms of their responses. A stance that conveyed to me and others that they were more faithful to their party than to the cause and to the calling. That set was mum with the imposition of taxes, mum when we couldn't get responses to public servant salaries, mum, but they have seemingly found their tongue and could tell you who is militant and who should be fit to lead and who should not be fit to lead. When they watch scores of workers from NCC and NHC being given walk-in papers, yes, I don't even call the name. Scores of workers being given walk-in papers from NHC and NCC without so much as even a discussion on process. They couldn't say a word, but no, they could tell you who in being militant or not. But the record is speaking for itself. In fact, it was one from that set in 2013, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I shudder at the memory, who stood up and said, thanks to the unions, this party has been re-elected. Putting party over the interests of the people who are genuinely suffering. Madam Speaker, unlike that said, I will not be an apologist for this party that I am a part of. But I know when my stewardship is fairly assessed, the record will not be a perfect one, because none of us is perfect. But it will show that some of the greatest progress to working people and their families came at this point in time when the Barbados Labour Party made provision for this country to benefit from the organizational stewardship of the Barbados Workers Union. Permit me, Madam Speaker, to spend a little time looking at the people in St. George North, and I'm going to crave your indulgence for 3 more minutes. I will be forever grateful to the people of St. George North who elected me to serve. For that, with every day that I am here, I commit to working tirelessly on their behalf. And I do believe that in working on behalf of working people generally and their family, it naturally touches them in many respects. But like many Barbadians who listened yesterday to the budgetary measures, I sat and I kept waiting to hear when I get something directly for my people. And I'm happy to express my appreciation and support for the water resilience initiatives that were introduced. Although not mentioned, I'm glad that people of Superlative, for instance, have recently gotten some relief in the form of water tanks. But on their behalf, I look forward to the day where the use of water tanks and seeing water trucks won't have to be a daily occurrence, but that they could be benefiting from running water like many other areas who benefit from running water on a daily basis. And the use of tanks would have to be the exception rather than the rule. As I turn to the long-awaited relief coming to Beltenetry and Bellevue, and notably Bailey's Atley, a community within my constituency, I commend the initiatives outlined by the government to provide pipe water and to improve sewage systems in these areas. These are not just infrastructural projects, but in a real sense, the lifelines of the communities long deserving this fundamental resource. The approach for Bailey's Alley, utilizing septic tanks and waste stabilization ponds, reflects a targeted solution. And I believe that, supported by the initiative to use local tradesmen and contractors and laborers from the area, this will go a long way to pleasing the residents in this area. As I finish, or as I seek to wrap up, I'm happy to say through you, Madam Chair, to the ministers responsible for people empowerment and housing, that we are glad as well to hear about the plans for respite care and day care for the elderly, and would have this chamber recall that some 20 years ago, I am told, that there was a piece of land that was acquired at Odell's Glen, where phase 2 is committed. That piece of land was to be a seroptimist village for the elderly, so that when you're looking for a good place to start, St. George North already has the land and already has the provision agreed in the House of Assembly for that kind of initiative. So the people of St. George welcome it. And one final thing, Madam Chair, in terms of housing, I'm glad to hear the initiative about the plans to speed up the legal process and so on around mortgages. Because for the people of the glebe, who I'm happy that many of them have taken advantage of the provision to have title transferred for them, many of them have already paid for the land, but they have not had the title transferred even after some 7 months. So on their behalf, the initiative as well would be a welcome. Madam Chair, I thank you for your indulgence. I'm obliged to you as I wrap up in saying That to those who continue to wonder how I stand effectively for both the government and workers, the answer is therefore clear. In my support for these well thought out measures, I can stand here not only with conviction, but with compassion and certainty that this government has an unyielding commitment to the progress of this country and continues to demonstrate that being pro-worker is feasible. It's fundamental to our vision of a thriving, resilient Barbados, and for that, I am unapologetically proud and obliged to you.
You're most welcome. Honourable Member for St. Michael North.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And the hour is late, and I do not intend to delay the House significantly. I do have a lot to say, though, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I will try to get through it all in the time that you will afford me. And I would ask you to keep me in check relative to my time so I don't wander into the midnight hour. Much to the support of my colleagues. I first, Madam Deputy Speaker, would like to, of course, thank the good people of St. Michael North who have given me this opportunity to stand in this hallowed chamber and to speak on their behalf. This is now my third budget process that I am a part of, and I count it each time an honor and a privilege to be able to participate in what is one of the most important activities of our government, and to weigh my voice in and to lend my support to what this administration is seeking to do as we seek to drive transformation within this beautiful island of ours, Barbados. I believe, Madam Deputy Speaker, that the conversation is not a one-way conversation where I am here to speak on the behalf of the people of St. Michael North, but I also think that it gives me the opportunity to speak to the people of St. Michael North. And even as we would have had the opportunity during the course of the whole estimates process, when I say we, I mean the Ministry of Health and Wellness, led by a senior minister from the other place, and myself and the team for the Ministry of Health and Wellness, we were able to give a fulsome deliberation of a lot of the plans and activities and even some of the achievements of the Ministry of Health and Wellness over the last year and what we plan to do for the coming fiscal year. And with that, I'm happy that we were able to fully ventilate a lot of the different initiatives. But it gives me the opportunity, and I'm glad for the privilege to be able to speak to the people of St. Michael North today, because the Honourable Leader of the Opposition would have mentioned a few things, and I think he had a theme relative to realities versus experiences and different things like that. And I want to really caution the people of St. Michael North. First, everything that glitters is not gold. I heard that as a young lad coming up from my parents. I've heard it from many a wise person. And the second thing I would like to say to them is that as I review, as I sit and I listen, and I heard the Honourable Prime Minister, the member for St. Michael North East, as she delivered the budget presentation yesterday, I sat and I heard initiative after initiative, program after program, objective after objective, that once delivered would serve the people of St. Michael North very well in ensuring that they are able to achieve a better life for themselves, their families, their loved ones, and all of us collectively. Madam Deputy Speaker, the proposals as outlined, the estimates of revenue and expenditure, I believe will benefit the farmers in our communities, the agricultural workers. They will benefit the nurses in our communities. They will benefit the teachers in our communities. They'll benefit, Madam Deputy Speaker, every single person within St. Michael North and every single person within the confines of this Barbados and even into the diaspora. I believe that they will benefit from that which was disclosed and presented in this year's budgetary proposals. And therefore, I want to encourage the people of St. Michael North to continue to lend their support to this administration, because we are seeking to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to make a better life for our people. So, The first caution was with reference to all things that glitter would not be gold, and oftentimes might not be gold. And it reminds me of perception versus reality. And I heard the Honourable Leader of the Opposition mention a few things, and I want to just touch on them very quickly before I dive into how the budgetary proposals relate to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and of course, as I said, how they benefit the people in St. Michael North in particular. And I heard him say that this government is right now leading the people of Barbados towards suffering. I think his words were pretends towards suffering. And he didn't explain it. He didn't go into any type of expansion of it for us to even try to understand where he was going with it. But as I look across St. Michael North, Madam Deputy Speaker, I do not see a government and an administration and a people that are pretending towards suffering. In fact, quite the opposite. I see us moving in the opposite direction, going from suffering towards success and thriving, Madam Deputy Speaker. The only suffering that I knew, and I was in this country for over 38 years now. Thank the Lord. I get old. I get up there. And in those 38 years, I have seen a lot and observed a lot. I observed those 10 lost years under the DLP administration. And if you want to talk about sufferation, that was the only time that I know sufferation in this country. Every person in this Barbados knows what suffering feels like, and it was under the Democratic Labour Party's administration that he now is so, as he said, in the safe confines of, in the bosom of. So I do not see this thing. I'm lost relative to this pretending towards suffering that he is speaking of. He asked the question, what happened to our country? What has happened to our country? What has happened to our country? We are growing, we are developing, we are advancing, we are moving forward. That is what is happening to our country. How can he stand here and ask what is happening to our country?
Honourable Member.
That Honourable Member. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, for your guidance. I appreciate it. He also made a statement. He says, every means of elevation, this government is destroying it. The Honourable Member, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition said, every means of elevation, this government will destroy. And I took notes of what he said. I was listening. Because he was talking, sorry, I was going to say something that might be unparliamentary. The Honourable Member, I was going to say something that would be unparliamentary, so I will restrain myself. But I took notes of everything he said. And he said that every means of elevation we are destroying. I'm sure he's not referring to the fact that we came in having realized that they would have kicked down the ladder of education, and we would have heard some of my honourable colleagues mention already the fact that this administration, upon assuming office, as one of its first acts, was to reinstate the ability for our people to go and to get their tertiary education paid for by this government and by this administration. Something that they ripped and took away from the people of Barbados when they had the opportunity. So we are not taking away the opportunities from our people. He also mentioned that there's an over-dependence on tourism. And I don't know if he was listening to the same budgetary presentation that I was listening to, but the Honourable Prime Minister and the member for St. Michael North East did not focus very much on tourism in her presentation at all. In fact, she's focused on so many areas of diversification of our economy. It isn't funny. She spoke about international business and how we're going to work to develop that. She spoke about developing our pharmaceutical industry and many other industries as well, agro-processing. She spoke about economic diversification. She issued incentives and credits all across the board to incentivize and to drive economic activity in our country, to build and to boost our economy. She talked about digitization and the establishment of a data center, care facilities being incentivized and once again offered credits. All of these are things that were offered within this budget this year to diversify our economy and to allow us to have multiple legs upon which we can stand. There was not a heavy focus on tourism. We know tourism is there. That is one of the established entities and industries upon which we stand and we build our economy. But we have to diversify. Everyone has been talking about it for years. And this budget is a presentation that shows a reflection of that same ethos. We are diversifying our economy. I don't know what the Honourable Member was listening to, but that's not what I heard. And Madam Deputy Speaker, the one that really threw me off the most, the country is running aground. Which country is he talking about? Is he in Timbuktu? What's he talking about? Not this Barbados that I'm a part of. As the Prime Minister would have said, this country is buzzing with activity. You go through Swan Street, you see people left, right, and center. You go through Broad Street, people left, right, and center. Every shopping mall. On the big days, we know we can really measure it on all of the big shopping days. Christmas time and this time and that time. And you have all sorts of new shopping days in Barbados now. Even Halloween takes precedence in Barbados now. And you can see so much business activity. Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day. You see so much activity taking place, commercial activity at every level. Man, all you have to do, Madam Deputy Speaker, is driving on the highway. You see so much things going on. Vendors, left, right, and center. People are abuzz with activity and with life. And commerce is taking place within our country. So I don't know what country the Honourable Member is talking about that is running aground. I'm not sure what he's referring to. There is no reality in what he is saying. And then he also said, and I'm sure that this would have tickled the Attorney General, Honourable Member for St. Joseph, and his colleague minister, the Honourable Member for the City of Bridgetown, where he said that crime is running rampant. Where's crime running rampant? He's talking, maybe if he talked 2 years ago, there may have been something that he could say there was a spike in crime, in murders and different things like that. But we have seen crime going down, Madam Deputy Speaker. What is he talking about? What is the Honourable Member talking about? What's he reflecting? This is not a true reflection of where we are in our country, and it is ridiculous, Madam Deputy Speaker. I would even say it is reckless, Madam Deputy Speaker, for somebody to be coming and to bring these kind of false tales about where we are in our country. We are doing well. Is everything perfect, Madam Deputy Speaker? No, it is not. I'm the first to admit. But we are going in the right direction. And nobody can come here and just pull down all the progress that we're making as a country. Just because you take another position, you go over on this side of the floor, and you go from that seat to this seat, and all of a sudden you're changing your mouth. You're singing a whole different tune. It's nonsense, madam, and out of tune as well.
You call that democracy?
It's a democracy, it's true. Everybody free will. Everybody has that choice to make. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, let me move on to some of the areas that he mentioned relative to health. And I just a few weeks ago would have brought a bill to the House relative to amending QH, the QH Act, the QH Amendment Bill, and an act ultimately. And with that, we would have changed the position to allow for us to go back to revert really to a CEO being at the helm of the operations at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. And during that debate, and again, he referred to it, and he said, again, Madam Deputy Speaker, I wrote it down, we are denying the right to apply. We're denying our citizens the right to apply and qualify for jobs. And again, I have to refute that as a nonsense, Madam Deputy Speaker. How could we, in a process where there were over 84 applicants, a process where we would have advertised the position globally, not just locally, but globally, we have allowed this advertisement to go across the world and received over 84 applications, and only 2 of them were Barbadians, Madam Deputy Speaker. We did not put in the advertisement, Barbadians need not apply. There was nothing in the advertisement that restricted Barbadians from applying. It was open to all and sundry from across the globe, Madam Deputy Speaker, and only 2 Barbadians chose to apply. That is not the government's fault. And on top of that, we cannot make the 2 Barbadians that applied to qualify for the position. There's a qualification order even in government. Every government, state-owned enterprise, etc. have qualification requirements. The position had qualifications attached to it. And if they do not qualify, what are we supposed to do? Just go and pick them because they are Barbadians? We would love to give the job to a Barbadian. In fact, we did before. The executive chairman was a Barbadian, or at that time, was a Barbadian. There's no aversion by this administration to give a job to Barbadians once suitably qualified, once they apply for the job. So there's a nonsense once again to come here and to give people the impression that we are in some way, in some nefarious way, setting out to keep Barbadians from jobs that they duly qualify for and that they apply for. It is a nonsense. I refute that. The recruitment process was explained in detail when we were here in the well. The CEO, the chairman of the board would have explained it. The director of HR would have chimed in. It was explained to the people of Barbados, and it was a thoroughly transparent process. The senior minister himself said he was not even involved in the process. Recruitment took place. There were interviews by the members of the board, the subcommittee of the board. A recommendation went to the board for who should be selected. A person has been selected. That is how it went. That is how it has gone. The next thing he mentioned relative to the QEH is that there were some negotiations taking place last year with a caretaker for the homeless. There was some owner of the homeless. He didn't mention who it was. He didn't mention anything. I'm not even going to spend my limited time on that, Madam Deputy Speaker. Governments, ministries speak to many different people, and many civil society organizations, NGOs. We engage with so many different people in the course of our activities. So just because you had a conversation with somebody and some negotiation was taking place, he didn't speak to any facts. So I'm not even going to waste too much time on that. But we must understand that to further the reach of an administration and of a government, you have to have strategic partners. And there will be times where a government will reach out to some entity, some NGO, some charity, someone out there and work with them, either be through a private-public partnership or some other engagement, to be able to further the reach and the mandate of that ministry and, of course, of the government by extension. So I see nothing there to even speak further on. And the last thing that he mentioned that I want to respond to is that he mentioned, and I mean, this is where the falsehoods really just caused me to get upset. And it ought not to be so in this honorable place. To mention that there's the CEO that has been hired has no experience working in a hospital. Madam Deputy Speaker, I have requested the relevant documentation, reviewed the relevant documentation, and I can assure this honorable chamber and the people of Barbados that the individual that has been hired has extensive experience working within the healthcare systems in the UK of all places, in Dubai, etc. International and global experience working in healthcare systems, and was previously the COO, Chief Operating Officer of MID Yorkshire Hospitals, the NHS Trust in the UK. As far as I know, that is a hospital. As far as I know, that is a hospital. And he was the Chief Operating Officer of such. So to come in here and to once again say that the person has no experience, once again to make the people of Barbados feel that the government is just choosing people recklessly, that we don't know what we're doing and we want to do was bad for the people of Barbados. Why would we as a government, in seeking to do what is best for our people, go there with reckless abandon and make decisions that will not be in our best interest? All of us may have to go to that same QEH, Madam Deputy Speaker. Nobody knows what's going to happen when we step outside the door. Somebody could go downstairs and fall down in bad fields. I have to go down to the QEH. Why would we as a responsible government, why would we make reckless and irresponsible decisions? And for one to come in here and to give those accusations, it is disappointing, to say the least. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm going to move on very quickly because there was so much that was covered in the budgetary proposals that I want to get to. And I'm not going to spend my time. There will be time for me to talk about all of the change that has happened and transformation that has taken place under this administration. And it is unfortunate, and I've heard it for a lot of my life, and I've heard it coming into politics, that Barbadians have sharp memories. And the Honourable Minister, the Honourable Prime Minister and member for St. Michael North East, she says all the time, politics is the art of repetition. And sometimes it does bear repeating. But we came into this administration, and now there's no sewage running in our streets. We've had 2 salary increases for the public servants. 1 is coming again in April. 3, including the one that's coming. I'll leave that alone, Honourable Member. Non-contributing pension was increased. We reduced personal income taxes, reduced land taxes, improved business facilitation, restored, as I said, free tertiary education. We did all of this and more, even when we faced the dreaded COVID-19, even when we faced ashfall. All of these things were done by this administration to improve the livelihoods and the lives of the people of Barbados. And let me tell you, Madam Deputy Speaker, I believe that Barbados is back on its feet after being brought to its knees by the Democratic Labour Party between 2008 and 2018. After being brought to its knees, Barbados is now standing tall again under the leadership of our Prime Minister and this administration and this Barbados Labour Party team. And we're now poised to run down the track like Obadeli Thompson. Not like Usain Bolt, that's Jamaica. Obadeli Thompson. So how will we transform, Madam Deputy Speaker, as I'm coming down? 3 themes were identified within the budget. 1, growth of our economy. That's the first objective. 2, to create a resilient Barbados and resilient people, Barbadians. And 3, we want to do so in a people-centered way, a people-centric manner. Relative to growing the economy, and I just want to go through some of these things very quickly. The Prime Minister outlined that we're going to establish Business Barbados to better facilitate local and international business in our country. A lot of work has already been done in this regard, but we're now going to create a purposeful, specific entity that will now drive that process even more effectively and efficiently. Another one that stood out to me is the unlocking of the mortgage market. That is a big deal because so many people in this country want a piece of the rock, but then they go through a very laborious and difficult process just to get that mortgage in place. But unlocking and that colloquium that the Prime Minister, well, she didn't mention she will be leading, but I think she mentioned the Minister of Finance, Minister of Finance, and of course the Attorney General will be leading a colloquium meeting with the relevant stakeholders to see how we can unlock that mortgage market, move things along more efficiently. And the Housing Minister, yes, thank you, Honourable Member for St. James North. And the Housing Minister who will be a part of that colloquium to help us to really unlock that mortgage market. Establishment of a pharmaceutical industry. Of course, we understand, Madam Deputy Speaker, that during COVID, this really came to light for us. Having to source those very important drugs on the open market as a small open economy, a small island developing state, it was difficult. It was challenging. And we believe that if we are able to create our own pharmaceutical manufacturing entity here in industry, it will not only allow us to be able to create jobs, increase economic activity, diversify the same economy, but it will also allow us in those times when the next global health crisis falls upon us and befalls us, we will be able to have our own supply of drugs and medication and pharmaceuticals here that can keep our people safe, Madam Deputy Speaker. So this is an important industry. Moving on to the second point quickly. Relative to a resilient country and a resilient people, the Prime Minister outlined that we want to cover social, economic, and climate resilience. Very important. Coastal management, Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central. Water resilience, reservoir rehabilitation, water tank installation. I see you leaning forward, Deputy Speaker. I'm not sure if that...
You're doing very well, sir. You have 5 minutes.
Oh my, wow. Okay, thank you, Honourable Member, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Household resilience, waiver of import duty and VAT on the purchase and installation of what? Generators, water and septic tanks, and electrical pumps. All of this is to make sure that each household is resilient in the face of an ever-changing climate scenario. Madam, it's not the same as it was yesteryear, 20 years, and I think that sometimes the Honourable Leader of the Opposition is living in the 1980s Barbados. We have gone past that a long time. I don't understand where the Honourable Member is right now in his mindset. But we have moved past that place a long time ago. And we are facing now a climate crisis that now a government is putting things in place where we're incentivizing our people for purchasing the water tanks, purchasing the water pumps. So that in the event that in a water-scarce society, in one of the 15 most water-scarce countries in the world, we have to put these things in place for resilience. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm going to move on quickly and miss out some of those other things there. And then obviously the last part is the focus on our people and a people-centered Barbados. Reducing the cost of living, reduction of VAT on electricity bill, review of the minimum wage. I love this one because there's likely to be an adjustment of that due to inflation. But in addition to that, the Prime Minister has indicated that the minimum wage is going to be indexed so that it will receive an annual increase as well. And there will be a 5-year review every 5 years to ensure that it falls in line with where we are in reality. And I want to move on very quickly in my last 5 minutes, right? My last 5 minutes, Honourable Deputy Speaker, I want to outline a lot of the things that we're doing in healthcare. Thank you. Thank you, Honourable. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We're increasing the staff at the QH by 250 people in the next 3 years. That is tremendous. Why are we doing that? Because more staff on the road, more staff on the ground means that you can have better service delivery within the institution. Right now, one of the biggest complaints within QH is a shortage of staff. One of the biggest. There are others, but shortage of staff. So the Prime Minister has been meeting with the Ministry of Health and Wellness, in particular the QEH, multiple times since I've been in the ministry, probably about 3 or 4 meetings so far, with another one to come. And we're having detailed discussions, deep dive conversations with reference to how we're going to revolutionize and take the QEH forward so it can deliver better on its service to the people of Barbados. 250 additional jobs in the next 3 years represents 150 registered nurses, 20 nurse specialists or nurse practitioners, increased registrars and consultants, additional pharmacists, physiotherapists, speech therapists, social workers, paramedics/EMTs, and the list goes on. All of these are critical roles within the infrastructure of the QEH that once filled will give us the capacity to better deliver on our healthcare services. And Madam Deputy Speaker, that is an investment of over $17 million per year over the next 3 years. Can anybody say this administration is not taking healthcare seriously? 17 million just on those staff costs alone over the next 3 years per year. There's an ongoing physical expansion of the A&E that's taking place. It's going to come phases, and it's being done in a phase way. One phase is going to come to the end in May, and the rest of it will continue during the course of this year. With that expansion, a minor cases room, a large trauma room, a cardiac care unit, an X-ray room, 2 additional operating theaters to bring it from 7 to 9. And even as we then renovate the Lions Eye Care Center, that's going to give us another 3 surgery suites and theaters, bringing the total number by the end of that process to 12 surgical theaters. We have a $130 million loan, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm winding down now. We have a $130 million loan, thank you, that's going to help us to purchase new equipment and to replace some dated equipment, aged equipment. 2 of the key pieces that are coming to us in this $130 million is a MRI machine to be placed within the accident emergency department, and also a linear accelerator to help us with our breast cancer treatments. And we're going to focus on the primary healthcare system as well. You've heard the Honourable Member talk about the refurbishment of the 7 polyclinics, and we're rebuilding 2 polyclinics. And I'm going over the next 3 years, of course. So I want to, in my last note, Madam Deputy, I'm going to stop there. There's so much I can say. I haven't spoken about psychiatry and mental health. I haven't spoken about environmental health and the work that we're doing there, NCDs and the work that we're doing there. There's a lot, but there will be much more conversations along these lines. But I want to, in my final note, say to the people, as I said, I'm speaking to the people of St. Michael North. Get checked. Go there and do your regular screenings. There are a lot of persons who do not do a yearly physical exam. I want to encourage the people of Barbados as we continue to fight against NCDs, which take 8 out of 10 of our Barbadian lives. 8 out of 10 of our Barbadian lives are lost because of NCDs. Preventable illnesses, diabetes, hypertension, chronic respiratory illnesses, and of course cancer. These things can be avoided by changes in lifestyle. Do your regular checks. Do your screenings. Whether that be your cancer screenings or your diabetes screening, your hypertension screenings, do your screenings. In addition to that, become more active. Being more active just means getting up and moving around more. You can go to a gym or you can walk around your house. Doesn't matter, just be more active. And of course, eat well. Good nutrition is a prescription to helping us with our NC fight. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm obliged to you. I thank you so much for the opportunity. I look forward to the continuing discussion.
Honourable Member of Government's Business.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 9 a.m. tomorrow.
All those in favor, please say aye. The question is that this honourable chamber be suspended until 9 a.m. tomorrow, the 20th of March, 2024. Honourable members. Say aye already. Say it again. The question is that this honourable chamber be suspended until 9 a.m. tomorrow, Wednesday the 20th. Honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. This chamber is suspended until tomorrow.